important race. And a crowd of some 32,000, David, a lot coming from Germany. Of course, there's a lot of Turks that already live in Germany, the country trying to get, of course, into the European Union. And look at the weather, not what was expected, really.
Well, this is going to make it even more dramatic because, of course, a totally new circuit to all the drivers. There you can see the configuration of the circuit, 32 laps in total, but on a wet road, it's going to be very dramatic indeed. Well, we know from Superpole that it's Gary Paffett on pole position, and sharing the front row with him is Ben Schneider.
On the second row, the French-Canadian Bruno Spengler, and a fourth Mercedes-Benz, Jamie Green, 4 Mercedes in the top 4 spots.
Then we get to the best of the Audis. Lining up 5th, it's Mattias Ekström, and lining up 6th, the best of the Opels, Manuel Reuter.
Then it's Mika Häkkinen and Jean Alesi, 2 former Grand Prix stars together.
Ahead of Marcel Fassler for Opel, and then rounding out the top 10, the Audi of Tom Christensen.
Behind him, Laurent Aiello and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, an all Opel row.
And row 7 is all Audi, because you've got Martin Tomczyk just ahead of Frank Stippler.
Then Alan McNish, who had an unhappy qualifying alongside a former Le Mans winner, Dindo Capello.
Alex Margaritas lines up 17th, and Christian Abt way back 18th on the grid.
And the back row of the lineup is Stefan Muka and Pierre Caffer. So ready for the start. Wet tyres on the cars. They may change later. They're off, and Paffett makes a great start out of Schneider.
And Mattias Ekström slithers away from 5th on the grid, trying to dive up. He's into 3rd already. A great start by Ekström, but he can go no further than that because there are Mercedes blocking his path. Ben Schneider there, really defending strenuously, and that's getting Paffett to pull clear, except Gary almost lost the lot there. You can see the car drift as he came through the corner. It's a very high-speed circuit in certain parts, Istanbul Park, and in the wet like this, it is absolutely treacherous, Andrew.
Yes, indeed, David. Well, I thought it might dry out, but now looking at the circuit, I think it's far too wet for that. I think they're going to be on the wet tyres all the way through, but what a great start for the young Briton, Gary Paffett.
And this playing right into his hands because Ben Schneider now is being the good Mercedes-Benz employee and holding up Mattias Ekström. In 4th is Jamie Green, Mika Häkkinen 5th, and look at Green up on the inside there. Jamie Green goes alongside Mattias Ekström. Is he going to be able to wriggle away past this contact? Ekström's car flicked out wide a little bit, but he hangs on to the place. He's lost more time, but he's kept 3rd position. And there you can see as well now Mika Häkkinen looking for a way past Jamie Green.
Yeah, Häkkinen made a fantastic start. You said contact, David. It was only a slight kiss, wasn't it?
Very, very light indeed, but there was just that little nudge between the two, and you can see what the gap is 1st to 3rd as Paffett's pulling away. Schneider is 2nd, 3rd is Mattias Ekström, in 4th is Jamie Green, 5th is Mika Häkkinen getting out of the spray there to try and have some visibility as they come down towards the chicane.
Yeah, look at Green, he's on a mission with the orange mirrors, trying to get past Extrom, trying to make it a Mercedes 1, 2, 3.
The person that's lost out therefore is Bruno Spengler after qualifying so well. Bruno Spengler down in 7th place, and you can see the battle for 3rd. Mattias Ekström just ahead of Jamie Green, and I reckon that Ben Schneider now is closing up onto the tail of Paffett at the end of this opening lap of the race. There is Ekström 3rd, Green 4th, Mika Häkkinen is 5th, and another bit of contact. That was a little bit harder, I reckon.
Yeah, and Green is really on the limit. The car was twitching. Green has a dive down the inside this time.
Elbows Ekström off the road over the curb. Ekström onto the wet grass. Häkkinen's going to leapfrog the pair of them here, I reckon. Through the spray, over the line they come. Jamie Green just hanging on to 3rd place. In 4th is Häkkinen. Jean Alesi goes 5th, down to 6th then is Ekström. And look, Häkkinen on the inside goes 3rd, goes ahead of Jamie Green. Well, I think Jamie was a bit overly forceful there in his efforts to gain a place. He briefly gained well, then he's lost it again to Häkkinen, but it's Ekström having a really miserable first lap, who's come worst off than anybody there.
A volcanic start to this race. And this is really affecting Ekstrom's position, dropped down to 5th place, and that's not going to, well, it's really going to hurt him in the championship, David, unless he can race back. Now let's see what happened here. This replay, there is Green, a nudge, another nudge.
Yeah, it was a bit forceful at that point, and then into the last corner, Jamie Green goes for a gap on the inside. Ekström tries to turn in. Here it is from another angle. Look, Jamie Green goes up on the inside, and Mattias Ekström really is forced wide. That puts him over the curb and onto that very wet grass.
I went down the inside and Mattias tried to close the door, and we touched doors a little bit, but I don't think it was really hard. I don't think I had any damage on my car, and I don't think it was a bad move.
Well, here we see it again.
I reckon it was a bad move, that, because he sort of bounced over the curb and bounced into Ekström from that angle and forced him wide.
Yeah, but I don't think there was that much contact, but Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich, very unhappy indeed. Let's hear from him now.
Mattias did an excellent start, but then he had the contact with Jamie Green, and we think that something happened to the car because short after this contact, he just radioed the car is nearly undrivable.
David, I really don't understand that because the contact was very light. Okay, he nudged him out of the way, but there was no bits of bodywork flying. So,
unless it was just a freak thing that damaged something in the suspension, but we'll have to have another look if we can at Ekstrom's car and see how it's handling. But he certainly has lost a great chunk of time as we have the first of the pit stoppers, and it's Manuel Reuter who comes in first. And wet tyres are going to go back on to the Opel here. And there, another drama-filled day for Opel because Frentzen is off, and it looks like it's Christian Abt who has gone with him. Well, Frentzen's lucky, he's on the escape road, and there you can see, gets it all wrong under braking, hits Abt. Christian Abt's Audi fired off the circuit into the gravel, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, with bits hanging off the car, disappears up the escape road. Christian Abt saying he reckons Heinz-Harald was a bit over-optimistic today. He tried to brake very late, it all went wrong. He rear-ended me, and that was the end of the race for us.
Yeah, well, Heinz-Harald just lost it, didn't he? He was trying a bit too hard, and I think Abt can be aggrieved with that.
Go along with that, certainly.
He tried to protect his position. I tried to overtake. And where the confusion started was when he started to change the line. Just before braking, I tried to go on the inside, but I had to go very much on the inside where there was a lot of standing water next to the line, and then so I got aquaplaning and skid away.
Two men looked through prison bars, one saw mud, the other saw stars. Here's the start again.
And from this replay of the start, look at Ekstrom, absolutely lightning quick away from the third row, threads his way between the first pair of Mercedes, but he can't get past Ben Schneider going into turn one, and that's when his lap starts to fall apart around him because he gets bottled up there on board with Ekstrom, away from the line, slithers his way through the first gap, gets past two Mercedes, tries to get past Schneider on the left, then on the right, runs out of opportunities going into turn one, and he's stuck in third place for the bulk of the opening lap of the race here.
But at the front, it's still Gary Paffett and David, a dry line emerging there.
Still a bit treacherous offline, of course, and if you get anywhere near the white line or the curb as well, you're going to be in trouble, but certainly it is drying out here. There's no change in the order. Gary Paffett remaining ahead of Ben Schneider, and then Mika Häkkinen. Just thinking how Grand Prix circuits have changed since Ben Schneider's day, of course. He raced in Grand Prix in the 1980s here, the very latest Formula One circuit, and they're down in sixth place, Mattias Ekström.
Well, this is terrible for Audi and for Extrom. We've got all those Mercedes in front of him. Gary Paffett, it's the worst possible scenario for Extrom here.
Now, Tom Christensen's not having a great day, but he's looking for a way to try to get past Bruno Spengler here. Spengler qualified third, had a poorish start, and terrific Tom looking for a way past as they come down the straight. Christensen going to the outside line there. Is he going to be able to brave it out all the way around the outside? He's going to try, but it's not really the place to be. And Bruno Spengler with the inside line just about hangs on to that place, but Christensen's coming back at him. Tries one side and then the other. They turn left, then left again, and left again. This corner that seems to go on forever. You get four apexes really for that one corner. Spray being kicked up by Spengler's car. Downhill they come. And Tom Christensen not quite able, I don't think, to have a go here. Or is he? He's going to come from a long, long way back. Dives up on the inside. And he's made it stick. Superb move. Spengler tries to stay alongside him, but he's forced away from the dry-ish line. And Tom Christensen does indeed gain the place. And that was a really bold move.
Yeah, the finesse of a 7 times Le Mans winner there. And that doesn't always translate into success in DTM, but Tom Christensen making a great job of it here.
From a long way back, he switches sides. He's offline, of course, where it's even more slippery, and he's still able to go up the inside, move across, take the drier line, force Spengler a bit wide, and Christensen does it. Here's the replay from on board with the Great Dane. And there you can see that inviting gap on the inside. He goes across the dry line, still runs a little bit wide. As up front, it's Gary Paffett leading with Ben Schneider in second place, but it's not going to be too long, I wouldn't have thought now, Andrew, before these two have to make that first pit stop.
Now that's coming up very soon. Maybe they're just waiting to see if it'll dry a little bit more, but there's still quite a lot of spray. Gary Paffett then in the lead. will not be challenged by Bernd Schneider, that is for certain, with the championship so finely poised. And Paffett into the pits.
Now the pressure falls onto the mechanics. Bernd Schneider coming in as well. Let's see whether they rejoin in the same order, and indeed where they rejoin relative to Mattias Ekström, who has yet to stop. In comes Paffett. Team goes to work. Car up on the jacks, new wheels on. Car dropped down. Absolutely perfect stop, and quicker than Bernd Schneider's as well. So Gary Paffett will rejoin, in theory, with just a fraction more of a gap between himself and his Mercedes teammate. But of course we need to see what sort of a turnaround the Audi mechanics can offer Mattias Ekström when he makes his first stop. There is Mattias Ekström, just ahead of Gary Paffett. Well, he's got virtually no cushion whatsoever, has he? And of course, when Ekström makes his first stop, that's going to put Gary Paffett back ahead. The race order is Häkkinen ahead of Green, ahead of Ekström. They've yet to stop, with Gary Paffett the best of those that have made a stop, in 4th overall, and 5th is Bernd Schneider. But Mattias Ekström really is going to have a very long afternoon, I'm afraid, here.
Yes, indeed, and Gary will know he's in a very strong position here as we go on board with Gary Paffett just chasing Martin Tomczyk now, and the rain still streaming off the windscreen. And just looking at Audi briefly, David, we should put on record that 2 DTM drivers from last year, Frank Biela and Emanuele Pirro, have clinched the American Le Mans Series the day before this race over at the Petit Le Mans. So this is not going well for Audi, but certainly the American Le Mans Series has gone very well for them yet again.
Just as it has for those 2 drivers who had a pretty torrid time last year in DTM, didn't they? But going much better in sports car racing, of which they've become experts of late. Well, Gary Paffett is becoming an expert in getting past Audis, because there you can see Ekström runs wide, and now Gary Paffett tries to make the move as they drop downhill. Gary Paffett's got the inside line, and through he goes. Great move, and the Mercedes looking so strong around this circuit.
Yes, this is a good battle. Gary Paffett, though, very strong indeed, as you say. And more pit stoppers as Mika Häkkinen comes in, as does Jamie Green.
So these are the top 2 in the race. Mika Häkkinen, who's had 1 win this year, rejoins the race now. Where is Jamie Green? Green's behind him, so Mika Häkkinen will come out ahead, as in now comes Mattias Ekström. Well, this is going to be crucial, but of course he'll lose time to Paffett and to Schneider, and Gary Paffett's going to go back into the lead. Mika Häkkinen will rejoin 2nd. Who's going to be 3rd? It's going to be Schneider, just ahead of Jamie Green. And this is Mattias Ekström waiting to rejoin, and the car doesn't get away. Lots of mechanics needed to push it. It's going from bad to worse for the Swede.
Absolute disaster for him. And there, past the blend line now, he can accelerate and rejoin the circuit. And the way it's going, David, is not going to score any points at all.
Well, no, it's looking very gloomy for him indeed, isn't he? He's down in 7th place behind Manuel Reuter, but in theory he should be able to get past the Opel. Opel not as strong really as Audi, although Reuter has been good around here this weekend, and the Audis have been struggling. So this promises to be quite a good battle between the 2. Just on the subject of Opel, we haven't yet seen him in the race, but Laurent Aiello has, in the build-up to this event, announced his retirement from motor racing at the end of the year. He's won just about every championship he's ever raced in a touring car, and it's going to be a great shame when he does retire at the end of the year.
Yes, the end of a career which also included Le Mans victories, of course. A replay.
That's Paffett's move on Ekström, and although the Audi driver is the current champion, there's just nothing he can do there to stop the Mercedes. And as I say, the Mercedes looking so strong around here, and despite the best efforts and the best brains within the Audi camp, they just don't have an answer, do they?
They don't have an answer here. And of course, 1 round remaining, and that will be at Hockenheim. And even if Paffett wins here and Extrom goes to Hockenheim without any points from this Istanbul race, he will still be in with a chance of the championship. But it's going to be quite a long shot. Here is Jamie Green, the young driver from Leicester, who last year won the Formula 3 Euro Series, has been promoted into the DTM squad and has done a great job driving these kind of cars for the very first time this year. So the 3-pointed star has 4 drivers at the front of the field: Paffett, Häkkinen, Schneider and Green. Indeed, 5 Mercedes at the front for Jean Alesi. Just crossed the line in 5th place. And the best of the rest, Manuel Reuter and Ekstrom down in 7th place.
They'll have to pick up the scraps, aren't they, really, if you're not driving a Mercedes this weekend. Well, Gary Paffett leading by just under 2 seconds. Manuel Reuter there getting a little bit sideways, and this now gives the smoother Mattias Ekström a chance to challenge if the Audi has got the speed. Still can't find a way by Manuel Reuter. Another vastly successful driver within DTM, not perhaps in recent seasons, but certainly you go back through the archive of the championship and he's there as a champion. He's keeping Ekström at bay. Another of the Audis in the pits, that's Martin Tomczyk. And the right rear looking as though there was a problem around that corner there. I don't think that wheel was changed properly, but Tomczyk now on his way down the pit lane. I reckon Ekström and also behind him Tom Christensen here are being held up, aren't they, by Manuel Reuter? And Ekström's problem, Andrew, is that to get past, he's got to go offline to do it where it's wet, where he hasn't got the traction, and it's even more difficult to make that pass.
Yeah, absolutely correct there. We have got a vague dry line through here now. As you said, offline it's quite a bit wet. You can see it clearly on the track from those onboard shots.
Fantastic noise these cars make in a straight line. They howl across the long, fast straight there. And you see that Paffett is fending off still Hakkinen, then Schneider third, then Jamie Green fourth, and Mattias Ekström getting really bored, really fed up looking at the back of the Opel Vectra here of Manuel Reuter. Tom Christensen is behind him. Now, can Ekström pull that move that Paffett did on him? No, he can't. Still, Manuel Reuter is able to hang onto the line as they turn through the right-hander there. Ekström just darting around there, trying to unsettle Manuel Reuter. They're going to be overlapping, I think, as they come to the corner. Ekström goes round the outside. That was a really good move. Has he made it work? No, he runs out of road, switches to the inside, desperately trying to find a gap as they come through this chicane here.
Ekström obviously has concerns about the handling of this car. It just doesn't give him the confidence that he normally has in it after that early clash with Jamie Green.
And it doesn't seem to have the traction and therefore the drive and therefore the grunt coming out of the slow corners either, does it?
No, absolutely correct.
That's Jean Alesi making his way back into the races there. Ekström dives up on the inside of turn one, and he's done it this time. He has now gone ahead of Manuel Reuter. At long, long last, the reigning champion, Mattias Ekström, goes ahead of Reuter, and now Tom Christensen looking for a way by, and Ekström is starting to make good his escape. This is the replay. Ekström on the inside as they dive down towards the first corner. Very, very close, those two running side by side, but there's no contact between the pair, and Ekström goes through now to assume 6th place.
Yes, indeed. So there is Extrom established, as you say, David, in 6th place. Flames belching out of the V8 powered Audi. All these cars, of course, with race-built V8 motors. These aren't modified production engines. These are pure racing motors in these cars.
Also noticing now, Andrew, as well, one or two of the drivers starting to just edge the cars over perhaps a little bit more to the wet part of the road, and although it is drying out, then you might think, well, they'd be safer on the dry line. What they're doing is keeping those wet tyres cool, preserving them, and going onto the wetter parts of the road.
We do, of course, have the second round of pit stops still to come, but I don't think it's going to be dry enough, David, to change onto intermediates. There's some of the fans, some 30,000 people here for this race.
It's been a huge success, hasn't it? Yet again, DTM spreading its wings away from its native country, but taking the DTM package, not just this race, but lots of the support races as well, to a totally new audience.
Yes, indeed. Mika Hakkinen having a very good drive today, David, just behind Paffett. Schneider third, Green, this very Mercedes-Benz looking event.
Yeah, Hakkinen from 7th on the grid, remember, of course, but Ekström into the pit lane.
Well, he had a drama with the previous pit stop. Remember, he had to be push-started. Let's see what happens this time. Reuter also in.
This has got to be good for Ekström to give him any chance of points, really, in this race. The penultimate round of DTM.
Problems.
And it's a slow stop, yeah, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10.
Well, they have a problem with the left rear.
Well, the only luck Ekström has had all day is bad luck. He's just getting worse and worse. This is perhaps the blackest Sunday of his championship, isn't it?
Yes, David twitches a little bit as he comes out of the pits. And he isn't going to score any points here. Just noticing Alaminish now in 11th place. But look at Ekström. After his 2 pit stops, in 13th position. And of course, Gary Paffett in the lead is not being challenged by any of the cars close to him because they are all teammates, or brand mates, if you will. And their team orders will be strictly to leave him out front there. There is Extrom. And Extrom on the Mission Impossible now, David.
Replay here, Laurent Aiello getting stuck in the Opel there. Look, having a go on the inside. That's Frank Stippler, he gets past. Wriggles his way by. You get points if you're in the top 8 here. Well, there are 1 or 2 drivers ahead of Extrom, of course, who he was ahead of. He's now made 2 stops. Many of those ahead of him have yet to make the second, so he should gain a bit of ground. But whether he's going to get into the top 8, I'm not convinced, I'm afraid, given the way his afternoon has gone. We've got 10 more laps to run. Many drivers, as I say, yet to make their second mandatory pit stop. And up front, Gary Paffett just controlling this advantage over Mika Häkkinen, who, as Andrew said earlier, has driven well. Started 7th on the grid. He lies 2nd ahead of one, or another, I should say, of the many ex-F1 drivers in this race, Ben Schneider. And then Jamie Green in 4th position.
Yeah, Mika's added an enormous amount to the championship this year, brought in a lot of publicity, certainly enjoyed himself as well. And here is Tom Christensen making a pit stop, his second pit stop. The tyres go on, and of course this time Audi get it absolutely right.
Murphy's Law, isn't it? Well, this should, in theory, put Ekstrom back ahead of him, because Ekstrom was ahead when he came in for that second stop, so it's another place to be gained. Possibly, we'll have to wait and see, because I don't think Ekstrom has gone through yet, having lost so much time on his pit stop. It is still not improving. You can see that Christensen now looking for a way round the outside there of Alan McNish as they come through, and Tom Christensen goes ahead after his second pit stop moves through. Alan McNish has had a fairly ropey weekend, I'm afraid. We know that Alan is good. He's reminded us of that in the LMES races and at Le Mans that he has done this year. But I'm afraid in DTM, Andrew, it hasn't really been the McNish we expected.
Absolutely not. Just hasn't got to grips with the car at all, as Manuel Reuter goes for a wild old ride across the grass onto another bit of tarmac, across the grass and back onto the track.
This man hasn't put a wheel wrong. Gary Paffett looks as though he's heading for a 5th win of the season. He's out front at the moment with Mika Häkkinen in second place, although Ben Schneider, I reckon, still has designs on being second. He's not going to make too strenuous a bid, perhaps, and risk doing anything embarrassing for Mercedes. Ben Schneider is the ultimate Mercedes employee, isn't he, in DTM, but he definitely wants to apply the pressure to Häkkinen, and if Mika makes a mistake, Ben can nip past him.
There's the gap between Paffett and Häkkinen, 1.4 seconds.
Coming down a fraction, isn't it? Although Häkkinen is taking with him Ben Schneider, so I think you're going to find all the Mercedes concertinaing up here.
Yes, they'll provide the protection squad.
Yeah. Yes, Gary Paffett's never been safer in the lead of a race, even if that gap does come down. And how things have changed, because Ben Schneider, for many seasons, of course, Mercedes' favoured driver. And now it is Gary Paffett, a man from the UK, driving for Mercedes, who has certainly taken over as the star turn at Mercedes, and the man that could win the championship. The Turkish marshals there having collected 1 or 2 bits and pieces, possibly off that car, because that's Pierre Caffer, who has had a moment and drives into the gravel. There was probably a master plan there to try and spin the car around, but I'm afraid it has not totally worked for Pierre Caffer. Somebody else who drove, of course, in LMES last year with Alan McNish. Somebody else has had a bad year.
Yeah, Pierre just really hasn't got to grips at all with DTM. There's his spin. And pirouetting a couple of times. Some ice skaters would have been proud of that one.
Quite how he contrived to drive into the gravel, we don't see, but that is the ultimate result. A harmless spin onto that safety tarmac put down for the retardation of modern racing cars, and Pierre Caffer then gets the car all carried away and plonks it in the gravel bed. I don't think Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich was overly impressed by that, was he?
No, I do wonder if Caffer will retain his Audi contract, because he has really underwhelmed this season.
It's interesting, isn't it, how different drivers these days are suited to different cars or different disciplines.
Yeah, because Caffer was very good in the American Le Mans Series last year in the R8.
In comes the leader, in comes Gary Paffett. From, of course, karting into Formula 3 and then into DTM a couple of years ago as part of the shuffling when Uwe Altzen walked away from the category. Gary Paffett came in. Well, now he is almost with one hand on the championship. On go the new tyres, 8 more laps to run. Gary Paffett goes down the pit lane, up with the gears, back into the race, and it's looking good for win number 5 for the Englishman.
Yeah, Gary's been there or thereabouts all season. It really is quite steep going out of the pit lane, as you see from that camera angle.
It's a good circuit though, isn't it?
Excellent circuit. Tilk has had a lot of criticism in the past for his somewhat anemic race circuits, but this one has got a lot going for it. The camber changes, the difficult technical corners, and indeed the various undulations. It's a terrific track and also a great facility. All the Grand Prix people that came back from the Turkish event full of praises, although apparently quite a lot of them had jiffy tummies. But we haven't had any reports of that amongst the DTM boys.
So Schneider and Jamie Green running 1-2. They've yet to make their second stop, so it's Paffett ahead of Häkkinen in real terms. And Mattias Ekström, well, it is not, on the current evidence, going to be an afternoon that scores any points for him. Remember, the top 8 get points. At the moment, it's looking bad for him.
There's a yellow flag out, as you see from our graphic there. I'm not sure, maybe that's for them trying to remove Kaffer's car.
Good battle going on here, look, as well, between Opel and Audi, with Manuel Reuter at the back trying to make a bit of progress as the cars wriggle their way through that sequence of left-handers. Drop downhill now. But the Mercedes mechanics getting ready for another round of pit stops, because we're going to have, I reckon, Ben Schneider and Jamie Green in this time around. In they come. Schneider is in, Jamie Green in as well. Well, they're not going to take points away from Gary Paffett, but it's second, third and fourth where the real drama lies in this race.
Again, very efficient pit stops. Meanwhile, Paffett continuing on his way.
Down the pit lane then comes Schneider, comes Jamie Green, and Gary Paffett is going to take back the lead of the race, and back into second is going to go Mika Häkkinen, or is he? It's going to be close as they get to the blend line. The black Mercedes of Häkkinen just ahead of the red and silver car of Ben Schneider. That's where the real battle lies then on the last 7 laps of the race.
Well, I'm hoping that Norbert Haug is going to let these guys fight it out. But of course, this championship so very important, and of course, as well as the drivers' championship, as Extrom is just passed very easily there.
Yeah, by Bruno Spengler, and although we'd heard Ulrich saying that the Audi was virtually undrivable, certainly Ekstrom is losing yet more speed now on this most recent set of tyres.
Yeah, what I was saying, David, as well as the drivers' title chase, of course, there's the manufacturer's title as well, and Audi were in the lead of that going into this race by a reasonable margin, but Mercedes going to really dent that here.
That's Spengler and Laurent Aiello getting it together. Spengler goes off the circuit, gets back on again, just ahead of Mattias Ekström. Ekström's going to have a run as they come down the straight here. Can Ekström gain a place? He's on the outside line, which is hardly ideal, and he can't get past the Mercedes. Tries the inside line. And as they come out of the corner, Mattias Ekström's car just doesn't seem to have the pace, does it, to take the fight properly to the Mercedes. He's having to really be offered the scraps at the table now.
Yeah, Ekström must be frustrated now.
Here's the replay, Laurent Aiello just making a bit of contact with Spengler. Oh, and a bit more contact, sliding into the Mercedes again, having already hit it once and forcing Spengler off the circuit.
Well, I think the Frenchman might get his knuckles wrapped for that one.
That's Ekström's view. Spengler goes off the road ahead of him, and Ekström possibly for a moment thought, yes, I'm going to gain a place back here, but it wasn't quite to be. He had the momentum, but Spengler able to sort himself out. Disappointing race really for Spengler, having qualified so well. Into the pit lane comes Jean Alesi, this for the 3rd time.
Yeah, Lacey must have some problem then, unless he's decided to, let's see what tyres he takes. He isn't taking a gamble here, it's very late in the race. Wow, short of fuel. Obviously, when they made their second stop, they didn't get enough fuel in because they did nothing else to the car.
Well, Jean Alesi is going to rejoin behind Mattias Ekström, I reckon, because Ekström comes out of the corner. There is Sean Lacey, look, past the blend line. That means he can get back onto the circuit proper. And he's going to have a go, is he, to attack Ekström? And this is going to be a crucial battle. Ekström is in 8th place. If he finishes there, he'll get a point, but he's going to lose it now because Sean Lacey goes past him and Mattias Ekström is down to 9th and out of the points. And that is going to be crucial as far as Ekström's hopes of defending his DTM crown are concerned.
Yeah, you see them on the Mercedes-Benz management podium there, really getting well fired up, and it's going very much their way.
Here's the replay of Sean Lacey lunging up on the inside of Mattias Ekström, and bearing in mind that Ekström's car's been on the road for a few laps, and Sean Lacey just out of the pit lane, Ekström powerless to do anything there to stop the Mercedes coming through. Just thinking about the Mercedes tactics as well, you were saying, Andrew, a little earlier, you hope that they will be allowed to battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Well, if they are, of course, that's not going to affect Gary Paffett's position, but what it could do is risk one of them not finishing, or more than one of them not finishing, and therefore promoting Ekström back up through the points. So I just wonder whether Norbert Haug will, for the good of Gary Paffett's championship, impose this no overtaking rule over the radio. What do you think?
Well, David, when I said I hope they battle, I said it more in hope than expectation, to be honest. And I would suggest there's very strong team orders here.
The gaps are opening up as well. It doesn't look that dramatic a battle anymore, does it? But this, taking DTM to a totally new audience, really is proving how strong Mercedes is.
Yes, AMG, of course, do a great job with these cars through the HWA organisation. Initials of Hans-Werner Alfrecht, very much the architect of the DTM success, and indeed of Mercedes-Benz's success in competition over the past 15 years or so. And Hans-Werner Alfrecht, I'm sure, will be absolutely delighted with the way that Gary Paffett has performed these last couple of seasons.
Great scrap going on though here, look, because Mattias Ekström is still having to try to keep onto a place. It's Marcel Fassler that's tucked up behind him, and I rather fear it's only a matter of time really before Fassler goes through. What do you think?
Yes, Fassler's had a fairly quiet race, of course. At one time a Mercedes-Benz driver, a couple of years ago switched to Opel, and with Opel pulling out of the series for 2006, I wonder where Fassler will find a new berth. Swiss driver, of course, and there you see, very good move indeed by Extrom. And Margaritas, another of the boys from the Euro F3 season from last year, in the orange Mercedes behind, one of last year's cars. And Margaritas hasn't really shone at all this season.
But in this race, nor has Extrom, I'm afraid, after that good start. From the end of the first lap onwards, he's been fighting this rear guard action, and the car again just doesn't seem to have the traction there. Fassler goes through on the inside, and I reckon that Margaritas is going to be able to follow him as well, because now Mattias Ekström is offline, and Alex Margaritas, who drove in the FIA GT Championship as well in Dubai at the end of last year, and Celine goes by on the inside. Ekstrom's day is just getting worse and worse and worse. And there are two very unhappy faces there. Norbert Haug a little bit happier at Mercedes.
We didn't look that happy.
He never does, though, does he?
At the end, maybe. He forces a quick smile as we go on to the last lap now. And this is all about this Mercedes-Benz steamroller at the front, led by Gary Paffett. And Paffett now pulled away almost 3 seconds from Hakkinen. And very much this is Gary's day. So the DTM put on an excellent display here at the new Istanbul circuit, but it's been very much a Mercedes-Benz display for most of the way. The championship, of course, will not be decided until the final round at Hockenheim, but Paffett will certainly go into that race not needing to win it.
And all the pressure will go on Mattias Ekström. It's going to be a fantastic showdown, though, still to DTM 2005. But a 5th victory of the season is going to go the way of Gary Paffett. There is Norbert Haug, the boss of Mercedes Motorsport. There is Gary Paffett, the man behind the wheel of the Mercedes DTM. and he turns his way through the right hand of the road, climbs uphill. He's had to cope not only, of course, with leading the race pretty much since the lights went out, other than on the pit stops. He's also had to cope with a circuit of variable conditions. Started very wet, it's dried out, but it's still slippery. And Gary Paffett, with all that plus a championship to think about, has coped with it superbly. There's one more race to go, and Gary Paffett will go to that last round with a reasonably healthy lead in the championship.
Paffett then heads towards the checkered flag for 10 more points. And Paffett takes the victory. Häkkinen is second, Schneider third, then Green in fourth place.
How's that for dominance from Mercedes? And only now can Audi or Opel start to get excited about their drivers coming home. A long, long way back from the dominant Mercedes steamroller. We've still yet to have a fifth place car across the line, would you believe? Here's Mattias Ekström, though, making his way up towards the end of the race. The Audi flags fly, because Tom Christensen makes it home in fifth. Laurent Aiello is sixth for Opel. Coming home in seventh place, Jean Alesi for Mercedes, Bruno Spengler eighth for Mercedes, and they are the drivers in the points. The rest of them fighting for the scraps, and Mattias Ekström is going to be so frustrated. Look at the car, hardly any traction at all. Whether something in the suspension was damaged in that opening lap clash with Green, we may never know, but certainly that has been an Audi that's been a dog to handle all afternoon.
Yes, big disappointment for the Swede, leaving him with so much work to do at Hockenheim.
Well, Bert Schneider coming home in third place, and Schneider should be pleased with that result.
Yes, I'm extremely satisfied. It hasn't been a great season for me this year. The last few races, especially at the Lausitz, it was very disappointing as I retired with a puncture there. But I was delighted here starting from second. Obviously, I would like to have won, but that was next to impossible as long as Gary was still on the circuit.
There are the results. Gary Paffett the winner by over 3 seconds from Häkkinen and Schneider third. Green, Christensen, Aiello, Alesi and Spengler ran out the point scorers, with Mattias Ekström coming home way down in 12th position. A very bad day indeed for the reigning champion. A good day though for Häkkinen.
I feel really good. I feel very good, and particularly the reason because we had a program, we had a plan this weekend. We had a serious mission this weekend to get the extremely successful result and maximum points for Gary, which we all did to create that possibility. So, and also me finishing second, it was ultimate position to finish, because higher than that, it was no point and no reason and no chance to even try to do it this weekend.
And the man celebrating now leads the championship chase by 9 points from Extrom, Christensen and Häkkinen, and he was very happy.
We had a great chance for the race today, and I got a pretty good start. In the wet, it's always difficult to get off the line. You have to use very low RPM. I got a good start just in front of Bernd, and then concentrated on making a bit of a gap to Bernd, but keeping it on the track. I mean, it was very slippery, and we were pushing very hard at the start to get a gap, and then I think we had to concentrate hard to make no mistakes in the pit stops, because Mattias was a long way behind from quite early, as I know, and we just had to make sure we made no mistakes. I didn't get very close to the white line today, so it was a perfect race and a great job by the whole team.
And in the Constructors' Championship, a good day for Mercedes. It now takes over the lead ahead of Audi. Opel down in third.
The start was very good. I could overtake 2 cars. Then the first lap, I was not as quick as I would like to be, and for that reason Jamie Green was behind me and touched me sometimes, and in the last corner I got a little bit bigger hit and I lost more places, and then during the first stint I was not as quick as them, but that's how life can be, and then in the first pit stop I stalled the engine and lost some seconds. In the second stint I had a fight with Reuter, which was very fair, and then after my last second pit stop, the tires were not working at all, and I lost a lot of time. So everybody was passing me, and I could do nothing.
Audi's disappointment was Mercedes-Benz's joy, and Norbert Haug was very pleased.
We enjoyed it. I mean, it was still a very challenging race and very demanding in terms of strategy. And if it is slippery like it was today, anything can happen. But thanks to Gerhard Unger, Hans-Jürgen Matthijs, all the engineers and the mechanic in the HWA team, they did a fantastic job, was outstanding, and I think it is not easy to cope with these conditions, but they did.
So some very special days for Gary Paffett and family, but an ordinary day for Volker Stajcek.
It was a normal race day. We were in the end of the race on the 6th position with Laurent Yellow and on the 10th position with Marcel Fessler. It was a really difficult situation because it was raining in front of the race, and during the race it dried a little bit up. But in the beginning of the race the pace was not quick enough against Mercedes. We were really competitive against the Audi, but in the end we are bringing only a 6th position with Laurent to Rüsselsheim.
And the next and final stop, of course, Hockenheim. See you there.